This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody. 1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I am Billy Embody. It is championship week for SMU, going to the ACC Championship on Saturday, 7 p.m. Central in Charlotte against Clemson. But we'll talk about that game later this week with Hayden Howerton. We've got a lot to discuss as SMU took home a 38-6 win over Cal on Senior Day in Ford Stadium. But first, I got to remind you guys that, look, the time is now. The transfer portal is a week away as we're recording this. Signing day is this week. And, oh, yeah, the SMU Mustangs are in the ACC Championship. So subscribe to ontheponyexpress.com. We've had a bunch of people join us. Got a deal going right now for the ACC Championship. So jump on board today to get all the transfer news. SMU got a big football commitment as well on Monday. So lots going on the site right now. Before we move on to our chat with Hayden Howerton, we've got to remind you guys that we are presented by the Thomas Auto Group. Head over up 75 to McKinney to check out their Ford, Subaru, Volkswagen dealerships. Mention On the Pony Express for employee pricing on pre-owned and new vehicles. We appreciate Brandon Thomas and his support. Support him, a fellow Mustang, with the Thomas Auto Group, hooking it up all the time for our On the Pony Express subscribers.
Shopping for a new car, truck, or SUV? Look no further than the Thomas Auto Group. Browse our selection of over 2,000 vehicles from 3 great brands.
Watch this!
All online and in a few simple steps. Just click on the vehicle you want, save big on the most popular brands, and drive away happy. Plus, all vehicles sold are backed by the Thomas Promise. Visit our website, thomasautogroup.com, or shop in-store at the Thomas Auto Group in McKinney, home of the Thomas Promise.
Now happy to be joined by Hayden Howerton, and I had to bring him in right after this because we've got to get down to brass tacks here. We've got a big announcement to make, Hayden, as we are taking the pod on the road for the second straight road type of game, and we have a special event planned for Saturday afternoon, early afternoon in Charlotte for all of our On the Pony Express and Walking Strong listeners. We're going to be at Clutch Kitchen and Poorhouse in Charlotte. I can tell you guys, this is a spot right next to the stadium where SMU will have their official tailgate later on in the day, but we're taking it over with Bill Armstrong, myself, Hayden Howerton. The whole crew is going to be there, as we're going to be able to really give you guys an incredible experience in Charlotte at Clutch. We're going to be there at 12:30 is when really the event's going to get going. The live podcast will be done from 1:15 to 2-ish Eastern time. So we'll have myself, Hayden Howerton, Bill Armstrong, special guests with us for a live recording. We will broadcast it live, but if you are in Charlotte, you need to head over to ontheponyexpress.com, check out the page where it says join us live in Charlotte, and get your tickets. It's $40. So look, we're a slight discount for the SMU from the SMU official tailgate, but you get free drinks the entire time we're in there from 12:30 to 2. And that includes Epic Wines. So this is a huge venue, a massive opportunity for us. A ton of people have committed to this, and at least verbally. So looking forward to, I think we've got a chance to get over 200 people in that building, Hayden. So really excited about this. Again, go to ontheponyexpress.com to sign up for it. But between Bill, Hayden, myself, this is going to be a really special treat for us in Charlotte.
It's going to be a blast with Bill. A little crossover episode action. I can't wait to see these guys. It's going to be a fun weekend. But, of course, first, we got to talk about this past weekend. I mean, this was a weekend that was full of upsets, flag planting wars. But, SMU took care of business on Senior Day. They did what they had to do, advanced to the ACC Championship last week against Virginia, but clinched an 8-0 unblemished ACC record in their first year in the conference. And look, this was really special for the 30 seniors who walked this past Saturday. I mean, it's always emotional to walk out of the tunnel in your home stadium for the last time. There's only going to be 4 teams in college football that end up getting another home game here in the playoff. But in years past, that was it. That's the last time you're going to see your home stadium in front of your home fans, your home locker. I mean, all of it. You go through all of your lasts on senior day. So a couple big moments for some of the seniors that I know personally. I want to give a quick shout out to my good friend Ben Sparks. He got a start on senior day out of Norman, Oklahoma, grew up just in the shadow of OU, got his first career start against the Sooners last season, and then he gets to start on senior day. That was pretty cool for him. Preston Stone, ultimate team guy. What can you say about this kid? I mean, was looked at as a guy who was going to have the reins this season and lead us to what Kevin has done this season. And so I think it would be understandable if he had shut down and kind of let the train ride right on by him. But he comes in the game, he throws a dime in the triple coverage to Keyshawn Smith, who turns around and grabs the pom-poms for a little Terrell Owens celebration. I thought that was awesome. But it was a great night for celebrations all around. Senior Brashard Smith, he went and he pet Peruna after one of his touchdowns that he caught in the corner. Jonathan McGill grabbed his 3rd interception of the year. He ran and gave it to his family. I mean, that was really cool. But, guys, I do have to talk about the elephant in the room. I hope I'm not losing my credibility here, but Justin Osborne does break my all-time starts record. It is now at 54 starts versus my 53. I am happy for him. It is really cool. He's played a lot of ball for SMU. He's been a great addition for us. But selfishly, I'm a little disappointed. It is my consolation prize is that it's separate records. So I started 53 straight. He started 54 with a couple breaks for, a rolled ankle or just, little small injuries like that. But you know what? I get to hold that over his head at least, and the fact that he's chasing down my 4,000 snaps. So I'll hold that over his head. He'll hold the fact that he has a conference championship ring over mine, and hopefully he gets another one this weekend. But look, this magical season, it wouldn't be possible without these seniors. And these guys we got in the transfer portal are now SMU guys for life. I mean, they have contributed to 17-game conference win streak, 9 wins in a row this season, 8-0 first year in the ACC. And look, now we get a date with the Clemson Tigers Saturday, December 7th, 8 o'clock Eastern on ABC.
Yeah, we'll talk. That's still surreal to talk about when it comes to that matchup with Clemson. And thankfully, we'll have another pod later this week to do that, because all the emotions that senior day brings and all of the incredible moments that you had from Saturday, and in particular, you talked about Preston. I mean, that's stuff out of a storybook. I mean, I know the storybook is him, being in the position maybe Kevin's in, but to get that opportunity to have that moment, his brother was on the field. Both brothers were on the field after the game. Super stoked for him. Saw Justin Osborne after the game. He was one of the last guys to come off. Same with Brandon Crosley. There's just a bunch of guys in that group that have truly changed SMU, and they built off what guys like you, Hayden, have done for the program. And who would have thought, even from 19 and some of the years that SMU's had, that they'd be sitting right here. Somebody texted me, and not to make this about where else I've covered, but one of my LSU buddies texted me, he goes, "Hey, 4 years ago, I tell you that you're covering a team that's going to the college football playoff that is in the top 10, and it's not LSU. How do you feel about that? Would you take that bet?" I don't know. I would have thought back then that SMU would have been in the AAC still. I don't know if they would have been in the top 10. But here they are in complete control of their own destiny now because of, the senior day win, being able to go out and just take care of business in a really efficient, mature manner.
Yeah, these guys have put themselves in a prime time spot against a national powerhouse brand for a spot to compete for the national championship. I mean, just unreal, the level of growth that this program has had since its return in the late 80s. Every head coach has made this program just a little bit better. And Rhett was finally the catalyst that has taken us one step closer to where we really want to go. And I can't wait to see it. It's going to be unreal to even be able to experience being in Charlotte, being there for the ACC Championship. And then hopefully we get to go to the Peach Bowl or something real sweet like that. But got to get to my keys to victory from this Cal game. We got to do it, people, so we can get to Clemson after this. But I said that we had to rush for 160. I thought we had to get back to form after a little bit of a down week against Virginia. I don't think we did that. We had 30 rushes for 115 yards, but we had 2 rushing touchdowns. Derek McFall got active. He had 2 rushes, 1 for a touchdown, and then he had 3 receptions out of the backfield. So it was cool to see him get involved. Brashard had 60 receiving yards and a touchdown of his own. So look, as far as that goes, yeah, I want more yards, but I thought our running backs were really active. They got involved. They got a lot of touches. And so I give us a B+ on that. And then my second key, we had to force the quarterback, Mendoza, who's I thought it was going to be, to get rid of the ball quickly. And Mendoza ended up getting food poisoning, wasn't able to play. So it ended up being the backup, and thought we needed 4+ sacks with Cal giving up 3.5 a game, and we beat that. So we got 5 on the game. So that was a great job. I thought we had to limit Javian Thomas with the fast and physical front that we had. I thought Scott Simons was going to follow his same routine. Less than 3.5 yards a carry would be a win. We held Cal to 2.6. That's a win for us. And then this Cal team did not turn the ball over this season. And so it would be huge for us to contribute and add to their, I believe it was 8 is what they had coming into this game. 8 turnovers, and Jonathan McGill comes up with a big pick. He runs over, hands it to his family in the stands. That was a really, really special moment, Billy. But 38 points for this offense was really huge against this stout Cal defense. They were the 29th best scoring defense in the country coming into this game. And no turnovers were big because Cal was a team like us that was forcing a lot of turnovers. They'd forced 22 coming in. And then the O-line gelled pretty well, especially in the passing game. We graded out really well in our pass protection with only 1 sack allowed, which was in the first half. I think it was Savion, but he's been dealing with a little bit of an ankle. You saw some Andrew Chamblee in the second half, which was great for him. Continue to develop that guy, but not really a stat-heavy game for anyone in particular on offense. But it's because the ball was just so spread around. I mean, Billy, you got to remind me. I mean, Hipner had 5, Roderick Daniels had 6. I mean, they were spreading that thing all over the field.
Yeah, they were, and I think that's just par for the course with this SMU offense. They had 8 receivers catch passes in the game. I thought like the running backs were a little bit more involved. Brashard caught the touchdown pass. Derek McFall, his first touch of the game, and I almost, I had a good angle on it, and I just felt like when he got in there, I was like, they're not going to run him. Everybody's going to expect that he's going to get a run. Just for some reason, I felt that. And he had the swing pass, took it for 30. I mean, that was, they took it for 18. He had a real nice gain on that. And even LJ Johnson caught a pass. So they were able to move guys around and get the ball in their hands in different ways. And I think they did a good job in what was kind of a, 30, SMU actually probably one of the only games that they've done this year or since Kevin's taken over that they passed more than they ran. And I would have told you you'd be nuts if that would have panned out the way it did. But 34 pass attempts, including Preston Stone's 4 for 4, 30 rush attempts. I think they were kind of opening it up a little bit more. And maybe part of that is they got up big and they thought they could get everything. They were looking for the knockout. Like maybe Rhett was saying, okay, we can get this to 35-0 at half. And then maybe Preston Stone comes in halfway through the third quarter and we can get this thing out of here and have a nice, quarter and a half with Preston in and do all those things. But I think they offensively obviously stalled a little bit and penalties had to do with that in part, a ton of penalties. We'll talk about that. But also penalties, once again, kind of at inopportune times. They get bumped out of field goal range at one point and aren't able to, even attempt a long field goal, which I believe would have tied the record for 50-yard field goals in a season if Colin would have gotten that shot. I think it would have been like a 56-yarder, but they probably tried at that point because it was 21-0, I believe. So anyway, it was a offensive day that was not typical of SMU, but still Rhett called it one of Kevin's best games. And when you're just trying to really be somewhat conservative and really maybe just protect a little bit, I think it all came out in the wash pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, protect, press. I mean, I think it was a little combination of both. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
you're going for the knockout punch, but unfortunately, I think that caused you to do some uncharacteristic things. This offense is its best when it's allowed to play free and, stay on schedule and keep its rhythm that it's done. But this team went 33 minutes and change without a score in the middle of this ball game. I mean, we went, middle of the second, middle of game plus the third quarter lull, though. That's very consistent with how this season has gone, unfortunately. So I broke this down by points per game by quarter. First quarter, we're averaging 8.8 points a game. We start pretty fast. We've known that for a while. Second quarter is our best, 12.3 points per game. Third quarter is our worst, 5.9 points per game. And then in the fourth quarter, we finished strong, 9.7 points per game. But we still had 12 explosive plays on offense, 9 passes, 3 runs. And how that's broken down is a pass greater than 15 and a run greater than 10 is characteristic of a explosive play there. But yeah, just a lot of guys touching the ball, allowing some of these senior guys like Preston Stone to come in and get some playing time before he hits the portal. Not sure what he's going to end up doing. He did walk on senior day, so that was his last game. But there was still a lot of good things here on tape for this SMU offense, and I want to break these down here real quick. 2nd and 9 here, right hash. This is going to be our counter protection here. So we're going to have a double on the right side between the right guard and right tackle. PJ is going to come down, bang the hip of this down lineman, which is going to bring the linebackers forward. They're thinking it's run. You pair that with Ben's pulling action, that's going to pull number 10 across the line of scrimmage. He's going to follow the puller. But Kevin and Bouchard's action really sells this play and brings in that linebacker even more, makes the DN stutter, and then Kevin does a nice job of throwing it off of this guy's ear because he's throwing it where that Will linebacker was once standing. And then on the backside, you've got Savion Byrd, who's one-on-one with their star edge rusher, and he does a great job shutting it down. All right, we're in the red zone here. So this is a 5-man protection. So there's 5 guys on the line of scrimmage here over the left tackle all the way to the right tackle. We go 5 for 5. This linebacker over Bouchard is actually having him man. But on the snap here, we go 5 for 5. The protection, I think, is fine. I think the tackles do a nice job of keeping the width of the pocket the way that they're coached to. The guards do a decent job with Ja'Kai of keeping the depth. There's a little game, but it plays out in front of them. And then watch this linebacker. He takes off because he's got Bouchard man. But I don't think Kevin does a great job here of staying in the pocket. He's supposed to take his drop here, and he's supposed to settle so that he can step up. These tackles have the width, not the depth, so when they run the arc here at 10 yards, KJ's supposed to be able to step up into this. But you know what? KJ's an athlete. He spins out of this. They don't get home. And Matthew Hipner here on the right side of your screen does not get a great release here against this guy who's got him in press coverage. But when KJ spins out here to his left, he scrambles. Hipner goes into scramble drill, gets to the front pylon. KJ makes a great throw on the run here, and this is another 6 points for the Mustangs. This was one of my favorite plays of the day here. So we're going to have our buck sweep concept here, which is both guards are actually pulling on the snap. So this is an odd front here, which means that the center and both tackles are covered with open guard gaps. At least that's the structure of it here. So all covered offensive linemen are going to zone left here, and then your uncovered guards are going to pull into space. The first one being Ben, he's going to kick out, and then J.O. is going to follow him, and he's going to wrap. So here on the snap, Kevin is actually going to read this backside end man on the line of scrimmage. He stays out, so he ends up handing this ball off to Bouchard. Stone, who's the F here, does a nice job on the front side. He kicks out this front side overhang D-end hybrid, number 44. But look, watch Matthew Hipner here. He's split out wide. He goes to the front side linebacker, does a great job running his feet. Boom! He's the one that actually springs this run for us as he gets a nice knockdown here. Ben does a great job on the kick out once he gets around the edge. And then you know what? Once Bouchard gets out the gate, it's off to the races. And this is a hard tackle that ends up getting made. He's got one guy to beat. It's the backside safety. Safety makes a good play, but you know what? Still a big run of 24 here, largest one on the day. All right, they start out an even here, but right before the snap, they're going to stem to an odd front here. So this is going to be a basic inside zone left. Hipner here is the backside F who's going to end up arc releasing on the snap. Two Mike's middle is going to be the call for the offensive line here. And this is going to be a double on the left side between the left tackle and left guard. They're going to double this down D lineman to the front side linebacker. And then on the backside guard and the center are actually going to A to this backside linebacker. But look, the backside DN crashes, which causes the backside linebacker to end up replacing in the C gap. This is really hard to pass off as it is a 3-man game, but you got to really have 6 eyes on this linebacker to be able to pass it off. But look, on the front side, they're actually bringing will linebacker pressure. Watch the free safety roll over on top of the hash. He's covering that guy up so that he can blitz. This is something that you could be able to see if you really had your eyes out. But when you get in the red zone, things get tight. It gets a little harder to see. You get a little bit of tunnel vision. But ultimately, we need to be able to see this so that we could actually push it to 2 Mike's left. But it doesn't happen, and you ideally want to run inside zone away from pressure and an outside zone into pressure. The defense gets us here. This is a good call by them. It's 1-0 defense, and this should be a tackle for loss. But you know what? Freshman Derek McFall comes in the game, gets the handoff, and he's going to make this guy miss in the backfield. You know, he really makes both guys run into each other here. Watch this. I mean, they're tackling each other, and then he gets in the open field, forces another guy to miss. This guy's got a bright future for SMU football. What a score. All right, this will be the last offensive clip here. So it's nothing really mind-blowing from a protection standpoint. I really just wanted to highlight Kevin here. This is a 4-down with a slide on the right side, your man on the left. KJ does a much better job on his drop back. He settles at the spot that he's going to. I know De'Aaron King has coached him up on the sideline as the game goes, does a better job here, steps up into the pocket. But watch this throw, man. This is really has a little bit of sidearm action as he's thinking maybe this lefty tackle is going to jump. But, dude, he splits this window. He throws it in there. I mean, that's a diving DB who could have easily broken this up if it wasn't a perfect throw. But you know what? He hits Roderick Daniels on the run. First down, big play Mustang.
People asked, Hayden, and you delivered. You got the new angle. I don't know where. I'm not going to say where. But we did it with someone really special's blessing on that. So we appreciate that. You know who you are. If you're listening, you might listen maybe after all of this. But this is a really cool feature. We're excited to bring it to you guys. So shout out to everybody who made that happen, especially you, Hayden. And anyway, I think the cool thing about those clips, and I'll just say this and then we can keep rolling. The way the game moves and how quickly it is, you get a real good feel for that. Like, I think it's easy and common for people to say, oh my gosh, he had this or that. You see some of the windows that are out there. You see that throw that he threaded the needle on. It's tight out there. It's quick. Everything happens so fast. You look at how quickly Kevin's moving his feet. You look at how quickly the offensive line are getting into their sets. It's hard. It's hard to play major college football with that speed. And Cal is a good defense. I mean, they are statistically a good defense. They're well coached. And for SMU to do what they did makes it, even more impressive points wise. And I just think you get a really good appreciation for where the game is as far as speed and all those things.
And the game has gotten even faster than when I started because we're getting these bigger, stronger, faster players. I mean, that's just the reality of your program continuing to get better. And it helps when you join the ACC and your mid-season form is much better than it is when you're going against Memphis or Tulane, who had a great game, by the way, on Thursday night. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But it's just the nature of college football now. So I'm happy to be able to be in an opportunity where I get to sit in my office and watch tape on my TV the way that I did in the O-line room for so many years. It is really cool. Big thank you to our friend who allowed us to do that. And I'm glad we're able to show off some of the cool things that SMU is doing now.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, what they're doing and you see some of the play design. It's really fun to see it from that angle. And of course, we can always watch it back on the original, game ESPN type of footage. So really cool stuff there. And I think for SMU's defense, they really continue to be the story of this team. I know there's stars like Rashard Smith and KJ and all the things that SMU offense has been able to do just historically and this year in particular as well. But you have the type of just havoc that they wreak on, they just wreck opposing offenses' game plans week in, week out.
This was another gem from this defense. 6 points allowed. You've only given up 13 in the last 2 weeks. You've had more sacks than points allowed from a defense. That is unreal. I don't know if I've ever heard of that as a stat, but we had 5 sacks and 16 tackles for loss on Saturday. I hope that Cal offensive line goes back to Berkeley. They take a good look at themselves this offseason and go, we just got our ass handed to us in the last game of the year by SMU. But this defense held them to 8 explosives, 4 runs, 4 passes, and then guys who had big days. You had Isaiah Wacobia had a big day. He had 10 tackles. Kobe Wilson added another big day. He's continuing to add to his all ACC type season. 7 tackles, 2 sacks. Elijah Roberts added another sack. And then one of my personal favorites, Jared Harrison Hunt, JHH. He had 4 pressures, including a sack from the interior rushing spot. So when you can put a guy in the interior rush spot and get the kind of production a D end usually gives you, I mean, that's big time. You would love to have great pass protecting at all 5 spots, but typically your tackles are your 2 best, and then your guards, and then your center is the guy who gets help a lot of the time. And I can say that because I played center. But this defense is just extremely consistent week to week, and we can always depend on them to come up in a big, big way, including this one clip I pulled for you guys here. All right, 2nd and 12 here, 4th quarter. This is an under G front. And what under means is your nose guard is actually to the strength instead of your 3 technique being to the strength like it would be in an over front. But look, Ahmad walks down here. He's going to be over the open side A gap here on our left, center's right. And then on the snap, him and Kobe are actually going to run a game here. So this is really hard to pass off because they don't know who's actually the penetrator and who's the looper until they watch the center. Whoever the center slides to, that guy is the looper. And then the running back actually has the penetrator. This is really hard for a running back to get in there, snap it off to the center. And so this is a great game drawn up here. A lot of defenses do this around the country, but it's well executed by our defense, especially linebackers. These are guys that don't pass rush every down. They do a good job getting on edges. I mean, watch Kobe Wilson here. He's able to edge this center, run the arc, and he's able to get home for the 5th sack of the ball game for this defense.
I think the thing that impresses me at times the most about this SMU linebacker group is the way they play with leverage and getting low. And it helps, no offense, Ahmad Walker, Kobe Wilson are 5'10", maybe 5'11", or maybe 5'11". But they just have that ability to get lower than the offensive lineman and not in a power rush or pass rushing way. Just dip under their hands so easily. And it's a drill that I see it from time to time, them working on in fall camp is getting low. They'll have the guy with the hands up and they'll kind of, lunge and they're supposed to dip that shoulder. It's kind of a special teams type of drill as well. And you see it applied in the game. And I tell you, we talk about senior day, you're going to miss Kobe Wilson and Ahmad Walker next year. I mean, those are 2 guys that when everybody, I'm sure there's some receipts on those guys, I mean, trust Scott Simons. He brings in a guy that played for him, but Kobe Wilson was not a toss in. Like they went out and got him, but the last guy added to the 2023 roster, and now he's captain. And, in a day and age where there's some NFL linebackers that are around that 5'10", 5'11" height, they made some money this year, I think. They're playing at a real high level, and that play was a great example of that.
And, you don't have to be a starter your rookie year in the NFL either. Go be a special teams guy. Use those same skills, get on edges, on blocks, turn the corner, reach, make these arm tackles on special teams that come up huge for you. This guy over here, Connor Galvin, he texted me. He's like, hey, who's this 34 for SMU? This guy's a dog. And I was like, yeah, bro, that's Ahmad Walker. He's been killing it this year. But I just can't say enough about this defense. Scott Simons has done an unreal job of really transforming SMU from a offensive juggernaut to a team that you can rely on run game. And most importantly, you can rely on the defense to show up in a week-to-week basis. But finally, my last few notes here for the game before we get to our MVP pick is the penalties. Got to talk about it. 17 penalties for 137 yards is insane. That is way too many. I mean, you cannot do that. I know the game was out of hand, but ultimately, untimely penalties will get you beat. If we go out and have 17 penalties this week against Clemson, it won't be close. I've mentioned it a couple times this year about penalties, and I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but you got to do it all the time, or it's going to show up when it matters. And that's really everything on the field, your technique, your focus, things like that. But it can't be false starts. It can't be unsportsmanlike conducts, late hits, things like that, where it's just like, just be smart. Like, yeah, a holding is going to happen. A block in the back is going to happen. That is just playing hard. Those things just happen. But you know what? Ultimately, it didn't matter. SMU should have locked up a playoff spot. But look, you never know with the College Football Playoff Committee. And we'll see the final ranking next Sunday at 11 o'clock Central. And I believe SMU should be in no matter what, winning 11 games. 9 of them were Power 4 contests. And so our only loss is to another ranked team. Compare that to, call it Alabama, who has 3 losses, one of them to an unranked Oklahoma team. And then you look at like Florida State, of the season that they had. Everyone thought that they were going to be a juggernaut in college football this year, and 2-10. So you just never know with college football. You don't know how this is all going to play out. And so it feels like a must win again this week, but you know what? That's why you play the game, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think the penalties, look, you don't get to where this team is without having discipline, right? Like to prepare, to do all of those things that you need to do day in, day out to be at this level, to be in the ACC Championship game. But also, when you actually get down to the game and you talk about preparing for a team that you call the gold standard of this league, you can't do that. And I'm really intrigued to see the story that's written about this Clemson game on Saturday. Because is it going to be a game where SMU maybe turns the ball over, but plays penalty clean, free? Do they take care of the football, win the turnover battle, but they kind of rack up some penalties? What are we going to see out of this team when all the everything's on the line? I know this team, they don't want to leave this up to chance that the College Football Playoff Committee is going to have to make a decision on them. They want to force the issue. They want to go ahead and punch their ticket, as does Clemson, because they know if they lose, they're out. They don't want to lose to the new kids on the block, all those things. But I don't know. It's wild how penalties have been, I would say, out of a team that's been so consistently good in so many areas. I guess you take it, but it's just wild in some of the games how many penalties in the yardage that they have.
Yeah, this team, Coach Grizz is not allowing this team to be undisciplined. They're talking about it on a weekly basis. Guys are punishing for missing class, all the things that you want a head strength coach to do, he's doing. So it's not we don't care, it's fine, early 2000s Miami where, rack up 200 yards of penalties because it's not going to matter because of all the dogs you've got on your team. But it is just something that, hey, on Saturday against Clemson, keep your hands inside. It's going to take that next level of focus of, just do your job. You don't have to do anything extra. You don't have to go knock guys over the pile when it's been blown dead for a couple seconds, even though as an offensive lineman, that gets me going. But you just can't do it, And so I want to get to my MVP here. I want to get to my MVP pick here real quick. There's a lot of guys that deserve this. There's a lot of guys that have played a lot of football for SMU. There's a lot of younger guys that I thought were deserving of single game MVP. I thought Matthew Hibner had a great game. He's really come along for us. I can't wait to watch him next year. But I think the senior class deserves it as a whole for what they've all been able to do. These guys came in my final year at SMU, and they changed the trajectory of this program for the better, And in the first year of the ACC, you're going to the championship. 8-0 in any league isn't easy. You go play in Conference USA, going 8-0 is a big deal. And so SMU had not beaten a Power 4 school since 2019, and they ripped off 9 in a row after the BYU game. And so it's really hard to say enough about these guys, but I'm glad to say they're all deserving of it this week.
Look, you're out here just making me look like a bad guy because I'm going to pick one. But I will say I'm going to stick with a senior though, and I don't know if we picked him this year or not, but I'm going to go Kobe Wilson, another senior. He had 2.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Just racked it up, second on the team in tackles behind Isaiah Wacobia. I mean, he just disrupts. Like, I'm really interested to see how this defense gets under this Clemson offensive line because, we'll talk about that later. But they've been good against average and average against good. So we'll see. But we'll leave that for the preview pod. I do think Kobe Wilson has a chance to continue that level of play, and he's done it at a very high level all year. He is one of the guys, believe it or not, you just don't hear him talk about enough, so he's probably not going to win, no offense, but he was SMU's one of their 8 all AAC or all at the end of the year, of course, doing that, but all ACC Defensive Player of the Year nominees. He was one of the guys that was put up for it. So at least on the media side of things, in terms of trying to pick him, he was one of the guys that was listed. So it just goes to show how the coaches and some of the other staffs feel about him as well. So I expect him to get an accolade. I expect a lot of guys on this defense should. I'm interested to see how some of the numbers work out as far as, just rotating the defensive line like they did. Safeties, they had 3, starting safeties basically, plus CJ in the middle or in the nickel. But this whole defense, this whole senior class is better because Kobe Wilson was added late from Temple, and he's a really fun guy to get to know. So hopefully after his career, however long that is, we'll get to have him on the pod a little bit more and do that. He's joined us a few times. So I tell you, that was a tough on the field after the game, watching some of those guys walk off, because it's one of those groups that, and Rhett broke down the locker room, but they just don't come around like that very often, like in a huge group like that has done so much. I mean, you look up and down that group, whether it be 1 year, 5 years. So special one, man.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah. All right. Before we move on to coast, I do want to remind you guys that we are presented by our friends at AKM Turf and Greens. Reach out to Alex and Meredith Carpenter. They run this business. You can see this awesome backyard if you're watching on YouTube, like total goals. Might try to do it one day. We'll see. It is not mine, unfortunately. But the pool, the putting green, chipping area, into the covered pavilion area is pretty sweet. And they can give you a discount. Code PONYUP for $500 off your order today. Go to akmturfandgreens.com to completely transform your backyard today into this incredible space for you, your friends, your family to enjoy. So reach out to them, AKM Turf and Greens. All right. Coast to coast. What a wild week it was. And we're recording Monday night. And full disclosure, we're recording Clemson pod right after this. It's ACC Championship week. This thing's going to get crazy. So we're not going to see together on the pod. Maybe we jump on like Wednesday morning or something and record a quick one, or super late Tuesday, a 10-minute one. But we'll see how we feel. But we're not going to, have reaction planned, at least for the college football playoff. But boy, what a weekend it was for a shakeup in the rankings.
Rivalry weekend did not disappoint at all. I mean, there were big upsets. There are surprise wins every year in rivalry week, but this year just seemed different. You have the 12-team playoff. You've got teams that, rather than, if we win, we'll be the 10 seed. It's if we win, we're in the playoff. And so teams' whole seasons are typically defined by beating your rival, and that's what makes it great. You add the added pressure. I mean, now you got something special. But I got to give my take here before we get too deep into this. If you need to brawl post-game after having a 60-minute war, because that's what rivalry games are, you didn't leave it all on the field. Post-TCU, I'll leave that game in the past eventually, I promise. That was my most physically exhausting series of games. And so you either didn't take advantage of the 60 minutes and got your ass kicked anyway, or, you just didn't leave it on the field. So trying to fight outside of the allotted time, I think that makes you look weak. And I think it's bad for the sport. Guys are getting pepper sprayed in the post-Michigan, Ohio State, And it's terrible for the universities, So look, I'm not dumb. I remember in 21, we planted the flag against TCU, but it was unnecessary, Jerry Kill made that all about him when he said that we were knocking him over and, fighting a 60-year-old man post-game, which it just creates drama, and you don't even need it. We rushed for 350, but of course the story of the game is that Jerry Kill got knocked over post-game. And so, look, I didn't count every single fight. I heard there were 11, this week of full team brawls. It's just too much for college football. There comes a point where I'm okay with the famous video of Ohio State, Michigan outside the locker rooms, like John. But when guys are, street fighting, we don't need that.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think it's it's wild. It's wild what went on this weekend. I mean, pepper spray, we'll get to, coaches getting right in each other's grill. I mean, obviously, like when you got a fight on the field, that's going to happen. But it was, I don't know. I don't know if it's a complete product of everyone being fed up in their own special way with whatever happened on the field or whatever has happened during their season. Like Florida State, probably fed up. Florida probably letting out a whole bunch of what could have beens, or, Ohio State being ticked off because they just kind of, for the fourth straight year lost, some of those guys that are 3 and out or, red shirt and 3 and out never beat Michigan.
Right.
That's, a lot of, I don't know. It doesn't excuse it, but it's wild. I think just some of them were just kind of just crazy in that respect.
Yeah. So, going forward, I'm solely talking about the between the hashes, 60-minute, fights. But Michigan, Ohio State, you got to start with that. Big noon kickoff. Ohio State was heavy favorites in this game. They were 20.5-point favorites.
Crazy.
But this is why rivalries are great, because Michigan didn't care. They played great defensively versus the best team that money can buy, which is what Ohio State has been referred to as all year. And they go and steal a win at the Horseshoe, and they knocked Ohio State out of the Big Ten championship game in a year that Michigan was down. Everybody was kind of expecting it to be Ohio State-Oregon rematch on a neutral site, and they're not going to get the shot unless it's the playoff. But this was a hangover year for Michigan, and they finished 7-5. But as long as you beat Ohio State, who cares? That's a great year for them. But this was the first time Ohio State had lost at home to an unranked Michigan since 1953. Pretty wild.
Wow. So they were showing it on, I want to say College Game Day, maybe, like kind of previewing the game of like, okay, this was one where, Michigan did this or Ohio State did this, and, they were unranked or whatever. But I didn't realize that. Maybe it was that home piece that obviously wasn't touched on it nor hit on, but holy cow.
All of those were at Michigan.
Oh.
But
wow. I didn't get to watch that one too much. We were headed down to the Boulevard and things like that. But it was competitive, but it seemed like Michigan just kind of anaconda chokehold, style on them and just frustrated the hell out of them. By the way, I guess we could talk about this. Let me see if it's on here. Did you see the shot that Kyle McCord took at Ohio State after the game?
Are you talking about in the brawl, like post game when he's talking?
No, Kyle McCord, the Syracuse quarterback.
Oh, my bad.
Good. So who was at Ohio State last year? Like I think put out. Let me see if I can find it. Trolling. Anyway, both Fran Brown and Kyle McCord trolled Ohio State after the game. But Kyle McCord just tweeted, "You're welcome" at Clemson football. But then after the game, it was he said something about Ohio State or whatever, because they basically just cut him loose because they didn't like him enough. He's out there balling out, beating Miami.
Yeah, which we can jump straight to that one if you want.
Yep.
We'll come back. This isn't really a rivalry game, Miami and Syracuse, by any means, other than just being in the same conference. But Miami just blew its chance at a college football playoff bye, and possibly the whole thing. The Canes go out, they lose 42-38 at the Carrier Dome in Syracuse. we had said it for the last few weeks. That was a trap game. Syracuse brings them in, and the same Syracuse team that lost to Stanford just knocked Miami out of the playoff. And in my opinion, the guy who's to blame for this is Mario Cristobal. There was a 4th and goal, 3:42 remaining, and you choose to kick a field goal to cut the lead to 4. You didn't get the ball back. And so, look, if you take the ball out of your best player's hands in crunch time, you don't deserve to win. Miami looked dominant early in the season, and now after 2 unranked losses, might miss the playoff entirely.
Yeah, and Cam Ward was, playing with fire again, and it bit his team. And you look at I think overall growth of Kevin in terms of taking care of the football, or at least valuing it. And you compare that to what Cam Ward did basically week in, week out down the stretch. I don't know and I don't mean this as a shot because he's super talented, but it's almost arrogant. Like to throw that, to kind of throw just all of those interceptions the way he did them too. Yeah. And not take care of the football like that. I'm not sticking the blame at Cam Ward's feet. They've got defensive issues. They had ample opportunities, all those things like you said, but man, that was a game where you needed to step up and not be that riverboat gambler and take what the defense gives you. And he didn't do that.
Not to dance on graves or anything like that, but Miami has been trying to win an ACC championship since they got into this league, and they're going to watch SMU in the first year take their spot, which is insane.
And I think if you just kind of said this, and I kind of missed this piece, but I don't think they've ever won an ACC championship game, right? Yeah. Was that the piece? Yeah. That is just wild. Just wild.
But we stay in the ACC. We got to go to the Palmetto Series. You got Clemson, South Carolina, in Clemson, South Carolina. And look, South Carolina Gamecocks might be the hottest team in college football. 6 wins in a row. They beat their arch rival Clemson 17-14. 4 of those 6 wins are over ranked teams. And look, this could finally be the year that a 3-loss team gets into the playoff. And I think they're the best 3-loss team out there. Sorry, their losses are to Alabama and LSU by a combined 5 points. And Ole Miss blew them out 27-3 in the first weekend of October. A lot has happened since then. And South Carolina just ran the hell out of the football. They rushed for 267 for both offensive touchdowns of the day for South Carolina on a pretty good Clemson defense. At least this gives SMU a starting point with the game plan for next week. I think South Carolina gave him a little bit of a blueprint. I think Scott Simons is going to study it. We're not going to copy it exactly. Or I think Coach Lashley and Casey Woods aren't going to copy it, but they'll certainly study what went down in Clemson this past weekend.
Well, you've got that game. You've obviously got the Louisville game earlier this year, but watch Lenore Sellers and see how he evades pressure, see how he moves around. And it may or may not remind you of one quarterback of the SMU Mustangs a little bit. And Lenore's is a big kid, so it's even more impressive that, he does that. But Clemson, they kind of look slow. They just kind of look slow. And I'm sure at the wide receiver position, they are not slow. They are physical. They are huge. We'll talk about that. They are freak athletes all over that receiving corps. But defensively, they look slow in the front 7.
Yeah.
They're big body guys. They just didn't seem to really adjust in a way. And at the same time, they did hold them to 17 points. So, don't get me wrong, but it's much more of an offensive issue when Clemson plays good teams. But defensively, there are things that are there for SMU.
Yeah, no doubt. There's stuff for the taking for this SMU team. South Carolina is very explosive. They put up a lot of points. They've been really fun to watch. And 17 points, but defensively, they're able to get it done. But speaking of great SEC defense, you got to talk about the Lone Star Showdown. 13 years since the last time the Texas Longhorns took on the Texas A&M Aggies. And Kyle Field pregame, that was electric. But A&M's offense never showed up. Texas just comes out and smothers them. They hold them to 0 points because the only points for the Aggies of the ball game came off a third quarter pick six. I mean, they did everything that you could do. They had a blocked punt for the Aggies against the Longhorns. They had red zone turnovers. And you know what? It didn't matter. Texas was just able to get this done in a hostile road environment. And so this is embarrassing. A&M chanted SEC for 13 years, only for Texas in the first year in the league to beat them on the way to the SEC Championship. I mean, that's just poetic. The SEC Championship is something the Aggies have never been to. And if you think I'm an A&M hater, it's because I am. The Texas Longhorns will go on to face Georgia in a rematch. Texas's only loss of the year on Saturday for the SEC crown, which is going to be cool. It'll be a great game. It'll be right before our game on ABC. But look, 10 years ago, in the first year of the college football playoff, A&M went 8-5, and they won the Liberty Bowl. SMU went 1-11. So you pair that with this year, A&M is going to go 8-4. They lose their bowl game, they'll still go 8-5. And then SMU is 11-1, and one went away from a bye in the college football playoff. So look, all it took was a seat at the table with the big boys for SMU, and I love watching the other Texas schools fall apart.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to see the level of consistency that A&M is at. Because, hey, we talk about teams being consistent. I don't know if there's a more consistent football team in college football than the Texas A&M Aggies. And it's not the way they want it to be either. But it's until they prove you're wrong. I mean, that's who they are. It's kind of like Miami. Miami, I said it before the season, they're the Texas A&M of the ACC.
Yeah.
They've got a stud quarterback. They've got that going for them. They've got a hot name in coaching and Mario Cristobal, a big recruiter. And I actually like what he's doing there. So don't get that wrong. But when the going gets tough and you've got to get a win, they find a way to not.
Yep.
And they have quarterback issues. They have a lot of issues. Mike Elko, I think, did a really good job this season. But 8-4. I mean, that's what they do.
Yep.
We do what we do for those June Jones listeners out there.
And so, look, finally, I do want to touch on this. Went to the Abilene Christian game. I was not at the SMU game this past weekend. I will be in Charlotte. But Abilene Christian, they advance. They go and they have a 24-0 victory over Northern Arizona at home in Abilene. And so they advance, and their prize is you got to play North Dakota State. And so they go to the Alabama of the FCS this weekend, a team that has dominated the last 15 years of FCS football. And so it is pretty cool for my brother. They go play at the Fargo Dome. Casey Kroll told me that when they played there, they have really smart fans. So when North Dakota State is on defense, it is deafening. Can't hear yourself think. But when they're on offense, you can hear a pin drop. So I'm excited for my brother to go see that. I think that's going to be really cool for him. Hope they win, but realistically, I'm glad I saw my brother's last home game.
Hey, I mean, what a special, trip to go to. Had they played up there before?
They haven't. So they played at North Dakota, which is another dome because it's so freaking cold up there.
Oh, it's nuts.
But this is the first time going to North Dakota State.
Oh, that's a treat. I mean, if you're gonna go slay the dragon, just go up there and play with your hair on fire. But yeah, tall task this weekend for Abilene Christian. But hey, we'll be rooting for them from Charlotte, and we'll be watching. Hopefully we'll get a chance to have that one on at wherever we are gallivanting around the city as SMU gets ready to play Clemson. So anything else from this college football weekend? Again, we're not going to try. We're going to try, but maybe it might not happen to do a little quick reaction to the college football playoff. But this is it. I don't know. We went 45 minutes. It felt like it was 15 because we're just ready to get to Clemson. I feel like, they made it through. As Rhett said, they swept the fourth quarter. Now they get a little overtime.
Yep. I'm glad we're not in the American anymore, but I do feel bad for Tulane. I mean, it was looking like could have 5 teams that are the auto bids, and 2 of them would be group of 5, with that being Boise State and Tulane, and the Big 12 would get left out. But Tulane loses to Memphis on Thanksgiving at home, 34-24. And so the American's going to get left out. But what a job that Coach Summerall's done over at Tulane. I mean, he's going to be a hot name in college football. You give it not much longer. But pretty cool that Tulane's been able to be consistently pretty good. I know our friend Bill Armstrong, he feels very strongly that they should have come with us to the ACC. But, hey, what are you going to do? We had the boosters. They unfortunately did not.
Yeah. Met John Summerall multiple times. He's doing a great job. He's going to keep doing a great job. I think he's got a very similar trajectory to Rhett Lashley on the defensive side. He's just a defensive coach. But Joe Craddock, also down there as well as the OC. So, yeah, tough night in New Orleans over in Uptown. And, they'll be thinking about that one. That one hurts. That one hurts a lot. So, look, that is it for us. We're looking forward to getting to our SMU Clemson preview pod, which we'll have later this week. That'll drop. But before we go, we got to remind you guys about our friends at Rhoback. Rhoback.com, RHOBACK. That is what I'm wearing. It is the most comfortable hoodie I've got. It's just all the time. It stays like right near my desk or whatever. Like I can just grab it, throw it on, especially now that it's cold. And it's the best. Just got to keep it away from all things, that could spill on it because it is white. But look, it breathes really well. You can get 20% off your order at Rhoback.com. The code is PonyExpress20, first-time customers only. But, hey, Christmas is coming up. So there is quite the group of polos, quarter zips, and hoodies to choose from at Rhoback.com, RHOBACK.com. They also have a gift guide already lined up for you guys, and they have extended holiday returns 60 days after purchase. They're doing site-wide 20% off. But, again, please use the code PonyExpress20 for 20% off, and they'll do free standard shipping on domestic orders over $150. So appreciate Rhoback for their partnership this year. And Hayden, I appreciate you for coming to Charlotte. We're going to have a blast with the live podcast on Saturday. Again, go to ontheponyexpress.com to get the details of our live show from Clutch Kitchen and Pour House in Charlotte, right next to the stadium. The pod's going to kick off about 1 o'clock. So get in there around 12:30. Again, you need to buy tickets because then we'll throw your free drinks. We're not throwing your free drinks if you don't buy your ticket. Once you get the wristband, go to the bar, get your free Epic, get your free Wells, free beer, free wine, whatever you want on that respect. So we'll see everybody there. Of course, we've had a nice response as well. But look, we're going to get out of here and get to recording our SMU Clemson pod. So hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the On the Pony Express podcast, and we will catch you guys next time. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody. Follow us on your socials on X at SMU on 3 and on Instagram at On3SMU. And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.